The boardroom at Pinnacle Industries carried the scent of aged leather and long-standing privilege. I paused at the entrance, observing as high-ranking executives claimed their places around the gleaming mahogany table, each one posturing like a bird in a territory dispute. At the far end, barely catching the light, sat the damaged chair, its wheel crooked, its cushion torn. It remained unclaimed. "Interns sit wherever they fit," muttered Vincent Palmer, VP of Operations, not even glancing up from his phone. With a vague flick of his hand toward the busted seat, he added, "Maybe next quarter, you'll get something with padding." I didn't argue. For half a year, I'd allowed them to believe I was just another coffee-fetching, copy-making intern, while in reality, I was quietly auditing the company from the inside. Today's board meeting marked the end of my undercover mission. "Natalie, since you're up, coffee," came the command from Sandra Chin, the director of marketing. "Oat milk, 2 sugars. Oh, and check if any of those croissants are left from the exec breakfast." "Of course," I replied, soft-spoken. She didn't know that the breakfast spread she mentioned had been paid for on my credit card when their regular catering canceled last minute. No one ever asked how an intern could afford a $500 invoice. I dragged the squeaky chair to the shadows, its protests echoing off the high walls like a reminder of my supposed insignificance. The real decision-makers, CEO Marcus Webb, CFO David Kim, and the rest, settled into their pristine high-backed thrones, treating me as they always had, invisible. Marcus cleared his throat. "Now then," he began, his voice lined with entitlement, "let's address the TechCorp situation. There's been chatter about a hostile takeover. Let me be clear, Pinnacle is secure." I almost laughed. "Secure," he said. If only he knew that all the supposedly friendly shares had been scooped up, secretly, by a chain of shell companies over the last quarter. "My shell companies." "The identity of the buyer remains undisclosed," David added, flipping through papers with furrowed brows. "But our legal team is confident we can prevent any hostile attempt." "Whoever it is must be clueless," Vincent scoffed. "Paying top dollar for scattered shares? They'll go broke before they ever gain control." Sandra rolled her eyes. "Probably some Silicon Valley kid who thinks buying a company is like playing Monopoly. They'll get a harsh lesson." Oh, I was learning, all right. Learning just how deeply oblivious these executives were. The so-called intern who stayed late had been listening, documenting every shady deal, every shortcut, every person thrown under the bus for a bottom line. "Back to TechCorp," Marcus said. "I want to speed up our acquisition plans. Whoever's poking around will be too distracted to stop us. TechCorp is ripe for the taking." "But sir," one of the younger directors interjected, "TechCorp has employee protection clauses. If they're acquired, every worker gets a golden parachute." "That'll be costly." "Then cut the deadweight before we close," Vincent said without hesitation. "Fire them all for cause, nullify the clause, and buy what's left." "Problem solved." "Smart," Sandra said with admiration. "Exactly why Vincent's in line for CEO." I adjusted in my seat, its squeal slicing through the arrogance in the room. No one here suspected that I had already purchased TechCorp through another quiet front. And now, their little plan to obliterate hundreds of livelihoods was about to end them. My phone buzzed. A message from James, my head of security. "Team ready. FBI agent Reynolds just arrived in the lobby." "On cue." "Natalie," Marcus snapped. "Where's that coffee? And why are you even in this meeting? This is for senior leadership." "I was asked to take minutes," I said, holding up my laptop calmly. "Minutes?" He laughed sharply. "You wouldn't even understand half of what we're discussing. This isn't a school assignment, it's real business." "I'll manage," I said evenly. Vincent leaned back, smirking. "Actually, let her stay. Good experience for interns. Maybe she'll learn that leadership means tough choices, like slashing entire departments to stay afloat." I blinked slowly. "You mean firing whole companies?" They chuckled around the table. "Exactly," Vincent said. "Business isn't charity, it's a battlefield. And we're the generals." Right then, the doors opened. "I need to speak with Miss Blackwood regarding her acquisition of TechCorp." FBI Special Agent Reynolds stood tall in the doorway, badge out, expression unreadable. 2 other agents waited just behind him. The room turned to stone. Marcus's voice was laced with disbelief. "Did you say Blackwood. There's no Blackwood in this room, David muttered. Natalie Blackwood, Reynolds clarified, his gaze landing squarely on me. We need to review the documentation you submitted about Pinnacle Industries' financial misconduct. All heads snapped in my direction. I rose slowly from the broken chair. Its screech now sounded like a battle cry. That's the intern, Sandra whispered. No, I corrected, standing tall. That's the owner. I glanced at my phone. As of 47 minutes ago, when the final stock transfer completed, Pinnacle Industries is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Blackwood Enterprises. Marcus lurched to his feet. No, that can't be. You're an intern. You bring coffee. You make photocopies. I don't fetch coffee, I said calmly. I acquire companies. The lattes were just a cover while I documented your fraud, embezzlement, and market manipulation. Agent Reynolds stepped into the room. Mr. Webb, Mr. Palmer, Ms. Chun, Mr. Kim, please come with us. You are being taken into federal custody. You have the right to remain silent. This is outrageous. Vincent exploded, rising from his seat. She's a nobody. She sat in the broken chair. By choice, I replied, meeting his glare. Do you know why that chair's even in this room? 20 years ago, my father sat in it, back when he walked into Pinnacle Industries with an invention that could have changed everything. And you, I turned to Marcus, you told him he was a joke, that his ideas were worthless, that inventors like him came a dime a dozen. Then you stole his patent using legal tricks and got rich off his work. Marcus's complexion turned ashen. Blackwood. Thomas Blackwood was my father, I confirmed. He died thinking he was a failure, believing your lies, that his life's work was meaningless. I spent a decade building an empire just so I could buy this company, sit in his chair, and watch you fall in the same room where you crushed him. You manipulated us, Sandra hissed, her voice trembling. I listened, I corrected, to every cruel remark about worthless interns. To every illegal scheme you whispered because you assumed I was too dumb to grasp it. You confessed your crimes right in front of me while I poured your coffee. Across the table, David's fingers flew over his phone. I cut in before he could finish. If you're texting your lawyers, don't bother. Blackwood Enterprises retained your firm last week. I own them now too. Marcus scoffed. The board won't allow this. What board? I asked, turning toward him. I hold every share. I am the board. But I doubt corporate policies will matter much where you're headed. As Agent Reynolds finished reading their rights, his team began escorting the stunned executives out. Vincent twisted at the doorway, face flushed with fury. You think this makes you better than us? That tearing us down means you've won. No, I said softly. But rebuilding what you destroyed? That might. I took a breath, then continued. Starting with reinstating every employee you fired unfairly, restoring the pensions you looted, and reimbursing every small business you crushed along the way. That'll bankrupt the company, someone muttered. Pinnacle's valued at $8.3 billion, I said flatly. I think we can afford to do the right thing. With the FBI agents gone and the room finally quiet, I found myself alone in the same boardroom where they had ruled by intimidation and greed. Just me, and the old chair that had witnessed it all. I rolled it to the head of the table, the spot where Marcus had once held court. I sat, letting the squeaky wheel echo in the silence. Hey, Dad, I whispered. Told you I'd fix it. My phone buzzed. It was Rebecca Martinez, CFO of Blackwood Enterprises. Natalie, the press is already running with the FBI story. What's our official response? I scanned the room, the smug portraits of past CEOs, the ridiculous extravagance built off the backs of underpaid staff. Tell them the truth, I said. That Pinnacle Industries has new leadership. We're launching a full audit of all operations. And Rebecca, schedule a company-wide meeting for Monday. Everyone from the janitors to junior analysts. What's on the agenda? Restoration, I replied. We're going to rebuild Pinnacle into the company it should have been, the one my father dreamed of before it was stolen from him. Oh, and the broken chair. I smiled. That's coming with me. It belongs in my office, a reminder that sometimes the person who seems insignificant is the one with the most power. When the call ended, I sat there for a moment, replaying the past 6 months in my mind. Serving coffee to people who ruined my family. Taking notes while they laughed at my clothes. Sitting in a chair no one else wanted while they plotted the destruction of others. It had all been worth it, for this. I pulled out my personal phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I hadn't dialed in years. Dr. Elizabeth Blackwood. My sister. A teacher. Someone who'd carried our father's legacy forward in her own way. Lizzie, I said when she answered. It's done. We got them. Her breath caught on the other end, a sob of relief breaking through. What now? Now we rebuild, I said. We restore every stolen patent. Compensate every inventor they crushed. Pick up the pieces of the dreams they shattered. Dad would be proud. I hope so, I whispered, brushing my hand across the worn fabric of the broken chair. I really hope so. Just then, the boardroom door creaked open. A nervous young man poked his head in. Miss Blackwood? I'm James. I work in IT. We were told you're the new owner. That's right, I replied, rising from the chair. The staff, we're all kind of in the dark. People are scared, nobody knows what's happening. I nodded and stepped toward him. Tell everyone, no one's getting fired. We're actually bringing back everyone who was let go unfairly. And that bloated executive breakfast budget? It's being redirected to employee lunches. His eyes widened. Wait, you're the intern, right? The one who brought in donuts when the break room coffee machine broke down. Guilty. But why pretend? Because you don't understand a company from the top floor, I said. You understand it from the worst seat in the room. From the broken chair. That's where you see people for who they really are. James hesitated. We've been asking management to replace that chair for 5 years. It stays, I said firm. But have maintenance fix the wheel. Some things deserve to be preserved, just made better. James grinned and turned to spread the news. I glanced once more around the boardroom. Tomorrow, it would be transformed. The portraits of smug executives would be replaced with photos of real workers. The luxury perks would be turned into meaningful benefits. And the broken chair? It would remain. Not hidden. Not replaced. But restored, just like the company. And somewhere, wherever he was, I hoped my father knew that his daughter had done what he couldn't, taken a stolen idea and turned it into something worthy. My phone buzzed again. A call from the Wall Street Journal. They wanted a comment on what was already being called the boldest corporate takeover in years. I let it ring. The press could wait. The lawsuits could wait. Even the congratulations could wait. I had a company to heal. And it all started with fixing that squeaky wheel. But keeping the chair. Right where it belonged. At the head of the table. Because sometimes, the broken things hold the most power, if someone brave enough chooses to sit in them. Thanks, Dad, I whispered one last time. Then I got to work. The intern was gone. The owner had arrived. And Pinnacle Industries would never be the same again.